The issue of illegal immigration to the United States is complex and multifaceted, often involving a deep understanding of global politics, economics, and human rights. As people in various countries face poverty, violence, persecution, and lack of opportunity, many are forced to risk everything in search of a better life. This script examines the experiences of migrants from 10 countries who seek refuge in the US despite the dangers and the often harrowing journey ahead. So let's start with our first country, which is Mexico. The immediate neighbor, Mexico remains the largest source of illegal immigration to the United States, a phenomenon rooted in a combination of economic inequality, violence, and social unrest. The border between the US and Mexico stretches over 1,900 miles, and it's where the vast majority of illegal crossings occur. Economic struggles and job scarcity. Mexico's economy has made progress over the years, but deep inequalities persist. In rural areas, the economy is stagnant, with limited job opportunities and few means of escaping poverty. Mexico's agricultural sector, once a thriving industry, has faltered, and many young Mexicans seek work in the US, where wages can be far higher. The labor market in Mexico cannot absorb the number of people seeking jobs, leading to a constant flow of migrants heading north. Violence and criminal organizations. Another driving force behind migration is violence. Mexico has been racked by drug cartel activity, with regions like Guerrero, Tamaulipas, and Michoacán being particularly dangerous. The rise of organized crime has led to the deterioration of law and order, forcing many people to leave their homes in search of safety. The border and the journey. With family ties and cultural connections between Mexico and the US, migration is often seen as a way to survive economically. Migrants face harsh conditions as they traverse Mexico, using human smugglers known as coyotes to guide them across the border. This journey often involves enduring dangerous weather, sleeping in unsafe conditions, and risking deportation by US Border Patrol. Number 2. Guatemala. Guatemala, located just south of Mexico, contributes a significant number of migrants to the US due to its high poverty rate, lack of economic opportunity, and gang-related violence. The country has been facing a series of challenges that drive its citizens to seek a better life elsewhere. Poverty and inequality. Guatemala is one of the poorest countries in Latin America, with a large portion of the population living in rural areas. The indigenous people, in particular, face extreme levels of poverty, with limited access to education, healthcare, and social services. Many people see migration to the US as their best chance for economic mobility, as the country offers opportunities that are simply unavailable at home. Gang violence. The growing presence of gangs, such as MS-13 and Barrio 18, has led to widespread violence, particularly in urban areas like Guatemala City. These gangs engage in extortion, drug trafficking, and violent crime, creating a culture of fear. Young people are often recruited into these gangs, and many families are left with no choice but to flee. The dangerous journey north. Guatemalans seeking refuge often make the treacherous journey through Mexico, facing dangers from organized crime and harsh natural conditions. Many use smugglers to cross the border into the US, often paying large sums of money for the perilous journey. Along the way, they risk being exploited by criminals and may face violence or even death. Number 3. Honduras. Honduras is one of the most violent countries in the world, driven by drug trafficking, gang violence, and political instability. For many Hondurans, migrating to the US represents a way out of an increasingly dangerous and hopeless situation. Gang-controlled communities. Honduras has a long-standing problem with gang violence. Neighborhoods in cities like San Pedro Sula are controlled by criminal groups that force residents into a cycle of extortion and violence. Young people, particularly young men, are often faced with an impossible choice: join a gang or become its victim. This dire situation pushes many to flee, seeking safety and a chance to start over. Economic desperation. The country's economy is struggling, with high unemployment rates, especially in rural areas. Many farmers face limited resources and an inability to sell their products due to poor infrastructure. Economic opportunities are limited, leading many to believe that migration to the US offers the best chance for a brighter future. The journey of survival. Honduran migrants face many of the same dangers as those from other countries in Central America. The route to the US is long and perilous, passing through Mexico, where migrants risk exploitation by smugglers and encounter the dangers of crossing deserts and mountains. Despite these dangers, the promise of safety and work in the US drives many to make the journey. Number 4. El Salvador. El Salvador is notorious for its high homicide rates, fueled by gang violence, organized crime, and political instability. Despite its small size, it has become a major source of migrants seeking refuge in the U.S. Gang violence and fear. Gangs like MS-13 and Barrio 18 have a stranglehold on many Salvadoran communities. These gangs engage in extortion, murder, and drug trafficking, leaving residents with little choice but to comply or risk retaliation. The government has been unable to fully address the issue, and many people live in constant fear of being caught in the crossfire. Economic hardship. The Salvadoran economy struggles with poverty and inequality. Jobs are scarce, and for many people, the only way to support their families is to migrate to the U.S. Remittances from Salvadoran migrants play a significant role in the country's economy, and many families depend on this money to survive. The dangers of migration. Migrants from El Salvador face some of the most dangerous conditions during their journey. They risk being kidnapped, assaulted, or deported as they attempt to cross Mexico and enter the U.S. While the journey is perilous, the fear of violence at home makes the risks seem worth it. Our next country is Nicaragua, with its recent political unrest and economic instability, has become a source of migration to the U.S. As the government under Daniel Ortega continues to crack down on political dissent, many Nicaraguans are fleeing in search of safety and opportunity. Political repression. The 2018 protests in Nicaragua against President Ortega's government led to violent repression, with hundreds killed and thousands more arrested. Political activists, journalists, and ordinary citizens who spoke out against the government have faced harassment, imprisonment, or worse. This has led many Nicaraguans, especially the young and politically active, to flee to the U.S. Economic decline. Nicaragua's economy is heavily reliant on agriculture, but the country has faced declining productivity and limited access to markets. The political unrest has worsened the economic situation, pushing more people to seek work abroad. A safe haven in the U.S., for many Nicaraguans, the United States represents a land of freedom, where they can live without the threat of political persecution. The journey, however, is often difficult, with many traveling through dangerous routes to reach the U.S. border. Number 6. Cuba. Cuba's political system, while offering universal healthcare and education, is tightly controlled by the government, leading to economic stagnation and limited personal freedoms. As a result, many Cubans risk their lives to escape to the U.S. Economic struggles. Cuba has faced significant economic challenges in recent years, especially following the collapse of the Soviet Union and the tightening of U.S. sanctions. The Cuban economy is struggling with food shortages, inflation, and a lack of basic consumer goods. For many Cubans, the U.S. represents a way out of economic hardship. Political repression. The Cuban government's control over the media, freedom of speech, and political opposition leaves little room for dissent. Many Cubans seek refuge in the U.S. not just for economic reasons, but for political freedom. The dangerous journey. Cubans often attempt to reach the U.S. by sea, risking dangerous ocean voyages in precarious boats. Those who make it are often given asylum, as the U.S. has historically granted special treatment to Cuban migrants. Number 7. Haiti. Haiti has long been one of the poorest countries in the Western Hemisphere, struggling with natural disasters, political instability, and economic decline. For many Haitians, migration is the only option to survive. Natural disasters. Haiti is vulnerable to earthquakes, hurricanes, and other natural disasters. The 2010 earthquake devastated the country, leaving over 230,000 dead and many more displaced. Since then, the country has struggled to rebuild, facing further devastation from hurricanes and the COVID-19 pandemic. Political instability and poverty. Haiti's political system is plagued by corruption, and the country's economy is stagnant. With limited opportunities for education or employment, many Haitians view migration as the only way to escape their dire circumstances. The journey north. Haitians often make their way to the U.S. through South America, traveling through dangerous terrains and facing constant threats from smugglers and criminals. Despite the many obstacles, the hope for a better life in the U.S. continues to drive many Haitians northward. Number 8. Jamaica. While Jamaica is considered a middle-income country, many of its citizens are drawn to the U.S. due to economic challenges, particularly in rural areas. Unemployment and limited opportunities. Jamaica has faced challenges with unemployment, especially among young people. While tourism is a key economic sector, it has not been enough to provide opportunities for the majority of the population. As a result, many Jamaicans look to the U.S. for employment in industries like hospitality, agriculture, and construction. Political and social factors. Crime and political instability also play a role in the migration decision. The U.S. represents a place where many Jamaicans believe they can find stability and build a better future. Number 9. Colombia. Colombia has faced decades of violence due to drug cartels, guerrilla groups, and paramilitary forces. Though the country has made significant strides in peace negotiations, the effects of the violence continue to drive people to migrate. The drug trade and violence. Colombia is one of the world's largest producers of cocaine, and its drug trade has fueled years of conflict. Even though peace deals have been signed with major guerrilla groups like the FARC, many Colombians continue to flee drug-related violence and political instability. Economic struggles. While Colombia has one of the largest economies in South America, income inequality remains a problem. Rural areas are hit hardest by poverty, and many Colombians migrate in search of better opportunities and safety. So our last country is Venezuela. Venezuela's collapse has been one of the most dramatic in recent history. Once one of the wealthiest countries in Latin America, it now faces an economic and political crisis that has led millions of Venezuelans to seek refuge abroad. Economic collapse. Venezuela's oil-dependent economy has spiraled into hyperinflation, food shortages, and widespread poverty. People are forced to leave to escape hunger, lack of basic services, and unemployment. Political repression. The Maduro regime's crackdown on political opposition has led to widespread human rights abuses. Many Venezuelans flee to the U.S. in search of a better life, often taking dangerous routes across South and Central America to reach their destination. The reasons behind illegal immigration to the U.S. are multifaceted and deeply human. Whether fleeing violence, economic hardship, or political oppression, migrants from these 10 countries embark on perilous journeys in search of safety and opportunity. While the debate surrounding immigration remains contentious, it is essential to recognize the profound human need that drives these individuals to leave everything behind in pursuit of a better future.